Welcome to the last part of our Django polls application series. So if you're wondering where we are, then just click on documentation and here we are for the tutorials. So as you can see, this is the last part number 7, customizing the admin site. So this part is all about customizing our admin site. So if we go back to our application and from here we can go to our admin site. Let me put my username and password. So currently this is how our admin site is looking. But Django provides us with a lot of options by which we can customize the look and feel of our admin site. So let us go back to the documentation and let us see how we can customize the admin site. So the first thing is all about customizing the admin form. So for example, if we want to edit our questions, you can just click on questions and let's go to add a question, and here you can see that we have a sequence. The first comes your question text and then comes your publication date. So if you want, you can also switch the order. So let us see how we can do that. So let us go back to the documentation. Here we can see that they are creating a new class by the name of question admin, and this class is inheriting from the model admin class. So let us go back to our code editor and let us see how we can start working with all of these things. This is the admin.py file for our polls application. Let us start creating our custom class. So right over here, we can create a new class by the name of question admin, and we have to inherit from admin.modeladmin. Now inside the class, we can also change the fields of our model admin. So we can override the class parameter for fields, and let us assign a list for this one, and inside the list we can specify which model fields we want to change. So we want the publication date to appear first and then the question text. The next thing is we also need to pass the newly created class in our admin register. So here we can say that we also want to pass the question admin. Now let us save the file and go back to our application and let us go back to our admin site. So here you can see that first we have the question text and then we have the publication date. Now let me refresh and let us see what happens. You can see the sequence has reversed. The first is our publication date and the second field is for our question text. Let us go back to the documentation and let us see what's happening. So we just saw this, how we can change the order, and the next thing is they are talking about field sets. So for example, if we want to create two separate sections for the date and the question text, these can be created by using the field sets. So let us copy and paste this one, and then let me show you how it looks inside the admin. Let me just copy this one, go back to our code editor. And what we need to do is we simply want to replace the fields parameter by the newly copied one. So let me just paste it right over here and let me save it. As you can see, the format for the field sets is very specific. We are creating a list. You can also create a tuple, it doesn't matter, but it has to be of a sequence type. The next is inside the field sets, we are passing a set of our tuples. The first parameter that you can see right over here, this is the name of the section. So for the first section, we don't want to display any name. That's why we are passing none. And for the second one, we want the name to be displayed as date information. Now the next parameter is for our fields. So in the first section, we simply want to display a field where we can change the question text. And for the next one, we want to have a field for our publication date. Now let us go back to our application and let us refresh and see what's happening. And as you can see, now we have two different sections. The first one is for the question text and the second one is for our publication date. For the second one, we had specified that we want to name the section name as date information. So this is where we had specified that information, and for the first one, we don't want anything. So if you see right over here, we don't have a section bar for the question text. Let us go back to our code editor. The next thing for our admin site is we have one more model for choice, and we had seen how to add the choice model a couple of lectures back. And just to refresh your memory, we can go back to our polls and we can click on choices, and we can edit these choices. But this way of editing our choices, it's not very intuitive. We don't know whether this choice belongs to question number 1 or question number 2. Each and every time we have to click on the choice and then we have to select the question. But we can do a much better job. What if we could simply click on the question? For example, Python is easy to learn. And what if we can actually edit the choice right over here? Can we do that? Of course we can do that. So let us see how we can work with this one. So let us go back to our code editor, and above the question admin, let us create one more class. So let me call the class as choice inline. The next thing is we also need to inherit from admin.stacked inline. And what I want to do is I simply want to create a stack of choices so that they are very easy to edit. First, let us write the code and then we will go and see how it looks like. Here we can specify the model which we want to display as our inline. So we can say that the model is choice, and here we can override one more parameter called as extra, and let us set it as 3. The next is we also need to tell the question admin that we want to include the choices inline. So here we can override one more parameter by the name of inlines, and let us create a list, and let us pass the newly created class of choice inline. And now let us go back to our application. Now let us refresh and see what's happening. So now we can see that we have a couple of choices right below the question. So now it's much easier for us to edit all of the choices. And you can see that we have 3 choices, and after that we have 3 extra choices. So as you can see, choice number 4, 5 and 6. Now these are coming because we have specified that we want to have extra 3 choices. So that's why we have 3 right over here, and the first 3 are the one which we have already created. Now let's scroll a little bit up and let us see what else we can do. Now for this date published, we don't have to edit the date every time. So maybe what we can do is we can simply collapse this section. So let us see how we can collapse this one. So let us go back to our code editor, and for the field sets, for the fields we can pass some more additional data. So we can say that for the classes we simply want to collapse it. Now let me save this one and let us go back to our admin and let us try to refresh. So now we can see that we have collapsed the date information, and if we click on show, only then all of the different fields are displayed. Now let us go to the choices. So as you can see, we have these choices, but the fields are stacked one over the another. So as you can see, we have the choice text, but this is taking a lot of space. So instead of having them in stacks, can we have them in tabs? So the answer is obviously yes. So let us go back and let us see how we can create some more custom views. So this is a very simple change. Here, instead of stacked inline, we simply have to say that we want to have a tabular inline, and that's it. Let us go back and let us try to refresh. Now you can see that all of the stacks have been converted to our tabs. So here we have the choice text, and the next tab is for the votes, and the last one is for the delete field. So as you can see, it's very convenient to change all of the admin interfaces for our Django website. So let us go back to the documentation and let us see what we are supposed to do next. So here we saw how to create a question admin class, and the next they are showing how we can add choice. So we have already done that. Let us scroll a little bit down. Next they are showing how to create the stacked inline. So we have covered this one as well. Now let us see what else is happening. The next one is they are showing that we can also create a tabular inline. So we have done this one as well. Let us see what we can do next. Next, they are showing us how to customize the admin change list. So for example, let us go right over here and let us scroll to the top and let us click just on questions. Here we can see that for the display options, we simply have one tab for the question. But what we can do is we can have multiple tabs over here. For example, we can also have one more tab right over here for our publication date. So let us see how we can do that. Let us go back to the documentation. and let me just copy this line. It's a single line code. Let us go back to the code editor and just below our inlines, let me paste it right over here. Let us go back to our admin and let us try to refresh the page. And now we can see that we have one more tab, and this tab is for our published date. Now remember, for the model we had created one more method, and that was for was published recently. So if we want, we can add that one to our display as well. So here we can say that we also want to display our was published recently. Now let us go back and let us try to refresh. So here we can see that we have one more tab for was published recently. Now let us go to the documentation and let us see what's happening next. So here we saw how to add the publication date to our list view, and then we also added one more parameter, and that is for was published recently. Let us go down and let us see what else we can do. So the next part is we can still improve our display, and we can improve the display right inside our models file. So for example, if we just want to customize the column for was published recently, then we can do that by going to our models file. So let me open up the models file, and here we want to customize the display for was published recently. We can do that by using a special decorator, but first we need to import that. So here we can say that from Django.contrib we want to import admin. Now let us go to the method of was published recently. So remember, this is what we want to change the display for. Here we can use the decorator, and we can say that we want to change the admin.display, and let us add a couple of fields right over here. The first thing which I want to change in the display is for the boolean values. So remember, this method gives us a boolean value, and that boolean value is displayed as true and false inside our column. But we can have a little bit better visual display by using a tick mark or cross mark, and that we can do right over here. So here we can say that for the boolean we want to have a true. Next we can say that we want to have the ordering for this column by our publication date. So if we go back to our admin site, so here we can see that the heading is was published recently, but we can change this one as well. So here we can say that we want to have the description, and let us say that we want to call it as published recently. Now let us save this one and let us go back to our display and let us try to refresh this one. And this time, as you can see, we have a much better display. So the first thing is the column heading has changed to published recently. The second one, as you can see, that instead of just showing true or false, we have a much better display. Now let us go back to the documentation and let us see what we are supposed to do next. So this is the part where we saw how we can use the admin display decorator inside our models. And now let us scroll and let us see what else we can do. We can also add a couple of filters to our list display. So for example, let us go back to our admin. So here we can see that there is no way to filter our list display. So for example, if we want to display just the questions that were published recently, or the questions that were published in the last 7 days or the last month, so how do we do that? And we can do that very easily as well. So let us go back to our code editor. Now let me close the models file, and this is our admin.py file. Here let us override the parameter for list filter, and let us pass it a list of different filters, and this time we want to filter by our publication date. Let me save the file and let us go back to our admin side and let us try to refresh. So as you can see on the right, we have one more column for filtering. So for example, if I want to say which post I have published today, so I can simply click on today, and as you can see, for today there are no posts. For the last 7 days, no, sorry, this month, yes, I have one for this month, and for this year I have 2. Now what happens, instead of just filtering, we want to search by a particular question. So we can go back to our code editor, and here we can override one more parameter by the name of search fields. And we can tell Django that we want to include a search field, and we want to search specifically for the question text. So let me just paste it right over here. Now let us go back to our admin side and let me refresh. So now we can see that we have one added section for our search. Now this search is limited just to our question text because that's what we have specified. Now let me search for Python. Now let me click on this one. And as you can see, we have the right result back right over here. Now let us go back to our documentation, and we just saw how to use the list filter, and then we also saw how to include the search fields. Now let us see what else we can do for this one. So the next section is how we can actually customize the admin look and feel. So for example, if we want to change this from Django Admin to our polls app, so let us see how we can do that. So for that, first we need to create our own templates, and then we can override the default templates that are shipped with Django itself. So they are asking us to create a folder by the name of templates inside of our project. And after creating this folder, we also need to add this parameter inside our templates. Now this one is inside our settings file, and we have to give the path right over here for this line. So let us do all of these things one by one. Let us go back to our code editor and let me open up my sidebar. Now let me collapse this one, and right over here let me create a new folder. Now this folder should be on our project level, not inside of the polls application, and let us name this folder as templates. Now let us go to our project settings. So inside of my site we have to go to the settings file. Let me collapse my sidebar and let us go down and let us search for templates. So here it is, and we can specify the path right over here. So here we can say that we want to have the path for our base directory, and we want to add one more folder to it, and the name of the folder is templates. Now let us go back to the documentation. So this is what we have done till now. The next thing is they want us to override the default templates that are shipped by Django itself. Now here they are saying us to create one more directory by the name of admin inside our templates. And inside this admin folder, they want us to copy the template by the name of basesite.html. And remember, we have to copy this template which ships by Django itself. So the next thing is we simply want to find the path for our Django installation. And here they are also giving us a very convenient method. So since I'm using Mac, let me copy this one. And if you're using Windows, make sure to copy this one. Now let us go back to our code editor and let me open up my terminal. And here I simply want to paste that command. So as you can see, this is giving me a path which is right over here. Next, I simply have to copy the path. So let me copy all of these things. And here I can say that I simply want to change my directory to the new path. And once inside the new path, I simply want to open the current directory in a new window for our code editor. So this is how your default Django installation looks like. Now let us go back to the documentation and let us see what they are asking us to copy. So they are asking us to go to Django, then to the package of contribs, then to admin, and then to the templates. And they want us to copy the file which is called as basesite.html. So again, let us go back to the Django installation, and here let us go to contrib, then let us go to admin, then let us go to templates, and then to admin. And the template that we want is right over here, basesite.html. So let us copy this one and let us go back to our code editor. Let me collapse my terminal and let me open up my sidebar. So inside of this folder of templates which we have created at the project level, we have to create another folder by the name of admin. So let me do that, admin, and inside the admin folder, let us paste template that we copied from Django itself. So this is the template. Now let us go back to the documentation and let us see what we are supposed to do next. So here they are saying that we have to replace a Django tag. So they are saying that we have to replace this tag with the new text that we want to display. So let me copy from here, polls administration. Now let us go back to our code editor. Let me collapse my sidebar. So what we want to do is we want to replace this entire block with just the words of poll administration. Let me save the template and let us go back to our admin site. Now watch here what happens when I refresh the page. So here we can see that we have a new text by the name of polls administration. Now let us go back to the documentation, and I think we have almost finished the entire tutorial. So yes, we have finished the entire tutorial. And if you have stuck with me throughout the tutorial and if you have finished with me, then I want you to give a pat on your back, because following this tutorial was not an easy job. Django is really huge and it's very comprehensive for a beginner. And now since you have finished the tutorial, take a break, have a coffee and have fun. And I will catch you in the next video where I will explain what else you can do with Django.